Hello Internet, your friendly neighborhood game machine here, and I just had to do an episode on this game. I seriously had to. I brought some help with me as well. Before I introduce that help, I do want to say a few things before I get started. Bloodborne, a game that was created by the people that brought you Demon Souls and Dark Souls. Who would have ever thought that creator Miyazaki would have brought something darker than Dark Souls? Because Dark Souls is a pretty dark game, and so is Demon Souls. But who would have ever thought Bloodborne would be dark? Well, the Bloodborne that we have today is actually far much different than the Bloodborne that we started with. As some people may know, it didn't start off being called Bloodborne. It was called Project Beast. And also, there was two trailers, I guess you could say they were called, that I would consider them more of teasers, but each of them were different, including the one that you're watching right now while I blabber right now. This was when it was called Bloodborne, the trailer that you're seeing right now. You'll notice that a lot of the colors are darker, far much more blood, more gore, and more different environments than what we are used to now. There was a lot of drastic changes from Project Beast to Bloodborne 2014 to what we got when it was actually released. But enough of that small little talk. I do want to introduce my special guest. She is a Dark Souls player and a Bloodborne player of interesting formula, I guess you could say. She has beaten all the Dark Souls games. She's even beaten Bloodborne. So I'm going to introduce everybody, my good friend, AskALuna.
Bloodborne, a game created by From Software with game mechanics similar to their other successful title, Dark Souls. You could think of Bloodborne as Dark Souls but in a much more gothic setting and more horror based. Bloodborne came out on a variety of dates ranging from March 24th in North America all the way to the 27th of March 2015 in the UK. The game is played from third-person perspective. Players control a customizable protagonist and gameplay is focused on weapons-based combat and exploration. Players battle varied enemies including bosses using items such as swords and firearms and journey through the story, exploring the game's different locations, interact with non-player characters, collecting key items involved in the story, and finally discovering and unraveling the world's many mysteries. Bloodborne began development back in 2012 under the working title of Project Beast. Bearing many similarities to the Souls series of games by the same company, Bloodborne was particularly inspired by the literary works of the authors H.P. Lovecraft and Bram Stoker. The architectural design of certain real-world locations in places such as Romania and the Czech Republic. The decision by the game director Hidetaka Miyazaki to create new IP and not another Souls game was made because Miyazaki wanted to create something different. At the same time, Sony wanted a new IP to be made exclusively for the PlayStation 4. But how does Bloodborne compare to Dark Souls? Is it truly a Souls game or is it something much more? Bloodborne was created by the same people that created Dark Souls, and it's like an intellectual, darker horror version of Dark Souls. Dark Souls has Estus, which refills with bonfires, but Bloodborne has blood vials, which you have to grind for. Dark Souls has armor, Bloodborne has clothes. Bloodborne is truly a Dark Souls game with a big mixture of horror mixed in, and to call Bloodborne a Souls game is entirely up to you. But many believe it is a Souls game, and even fan theories suggest that it's in the same universe as Dark Souls but may happen many centuries later.
Does Bloodborne happen in the same universe as Dark Souls? It's a very popular theory. Miyazaki, the creator of Dark Souls, has stated several times that Bloodborne is a new game and has no link to either the Dark Souls series nor the Demon Souls series. But why do people still think it's connected? Well, because Miyazaki has trolled us on numerous occasions. Trolled us as in tricked us, pulled pranks. He's even admitted doing so. So, to say it has no link to other games in any way, let's put that aside for a moment. Could Bloodborne be a painted world similar to Ariandel? Could Bloodborne take place centuries after Dark Souls' Age of Fire? If you are interested in finding some proof to these connections, I'll give you a few things to look into. Go to Google or Wikipedia and look up these certain topics and statements per se. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to give spoilers with these topics and statements. I'm merely telling you, the people watching this and listening to my words, to go look this up yourselves. It might actually blow your mind more than it would be if I was to explain it to you. So the first topic to think about and go look up is Aldrich and the Deep Sea Rune. That's the first thing you should look up. The next thing to think about, what if Gwendolyn himself was not just an origin of the Great Ones, but a Great One as well? That's another one to think about. But then here's one that's really clenched my mind ever since I started playing Dark Souls and even Bloodborne. Are you ready for this one? Could Chalice Dungeons and all the destroyed scattered armor all around be the case that these were the knights from the final stages of the ages we see in Dark Souls, searching for an alternative to fire? The closest thing to armor we get in Bloodborne is the Cainhurst armor. So, think really hard about this one. But Bloodborne is a game everyone should at least try. So from the NPCs you meet, to the different environments, to the creative bosses, I'll say creative, but in the end, the creativeness ends up turning into rage. Much bloody fucking rage. So, think about this one for a minute. You're so used to playing Demon Souls. You're so used to playing Dark Souls. What could happen if you made Dark Souls darker? If you added more blood? If you had to rely on clothes versus armor? Well, you got Bloodborne, basically. But it's a more modernized version of Dark Souls. So I guess, yeah, this is like the upgrade of a Dark Souls storyline. So, basically in this whole situation, you're stuck in a nightmare. You're stuck in a nightmare where you have somebody helping you out in the beginning of the game by the name of Gehrman. And Gehrman is basically a man that has one leg. Yes, he has one leg, and he sits in a wheelchair. And he's telling you to certain places you need to go and check out. And, well, as you venture through different parts of Yharnam and different parts of just the whole Bloodborne world period, you learn how deceptive it really is. You learn how dark it is and how much it's there just to fuck you over. And, yeah, this is a game where you need to grind levels. This is a game where you need to learn enemies' movements and weapon arts, per se. So, you go deeper into the game and you learn also at the same time how much you think you may learn by what you see, but you also learn by what you hear. You learn by just your environment. You don't just learn by battling the enemies in this game, because you would learn by battling the enemies in Dark Souls. And, of course, reading information from different items you would pick up to even armor. But Bloodborne's a bit different. Bloodborne's different because, for one, Dark Souls, yes, as Miss Luna clearly stated, in Dark Souls you had to rely on a refillable Estus flask. Versus in Bloodborne, where you have to go and get those blood vials. You gotta go be a man, and you need to go get those blood vials. I know that sounded so weird, but just stick with it. Dark Souls always promoted the use of a shield. Bloodborne, you don't have that. You have two shields that you can use in the game, but Bloodborne gives you the, guess what's the word to look for? The, outlook where shields are absolutely useless in this game. You have to worry about the use of a firearm in your other hand. From the firearm being a pistol to even as big as a giant cannon. Yes, a giant cannon. And you know something? I like to use the cannon, because the cannon does a lot of damage. And your boy loves a lot of damage. But at the same time, there's also a lot more skill and strategy that's involved in Bloodborne. And you combine everything I've just mentioned just now to the beautiful environment that you're around. it has just the perfect atmosphere to me. It has an atmosphere that not many Dark Souls games have been able to replicate, simply because it's not able to be replicated. I guess you could say the closest thing I could think of that would replicate the environment and atmosphere of Bloodborne is one specific place in a game that not many people like, and that is Majula from Dark Souls 2. When you enter Majula your first time in Dark Souls 2, you hear the sounds in your left ear and your right. It's as if you're there. The sun's gleaming on you. You know, everything just seems so perfect and peaceful. But it's also different in Bloodborne. You enter Bloodborne for the first time. You see the darkness beaming on you. You hear the screams and the screeches and terror in your left and right ears. You hear the crackling of fire. You hear the dragging of metallic type items on the ground that are looking for a body to cut up. Because that's what kind of game Bloodborne is. Bloodborne is a bloody, gory version of Dark Souls. And it's much darker than anything we have really gotten from Software. So that is to me why Bloodborne is the perfect Dark Souls game to me. You could say that it's a Dark Souls game, you could say it's not a Dark Souls game. But in the end, all of the mechanics from Dark Souls are there, but with a little bit of a added challenge combined with a little bit of an added thing of new mechanics. So is Bloodborne a game for everybody? Maybe not for everybody, but for people that are Dark Souls fans, oh yes. Bloodborne is a game you should check out, and you should at least try to beat the game. You don't have to challenge yourself by doing no death runs or runs with a specific weapon. Test out every weapon you have. Test out every firearm that you have. Go searching for those different types of clothes that can give you good resistance. Maybe even you can play the game with a little bit of Fashion Souls. If you want to look fly or dapper as fuck, you know, you can go look for clothes that are nice to you. Hell, you could be like Miss AskALuna, where you could wear a dress throughout your whole playthrough. And in the end, yes, there was a lot of death, but in the end, you looked good while dying, and you looked good while winning at the same time. So, do I recommend Dark Souls? Yes, I do. Do I recommend Bloodborne? Most definitely. So, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw and heard today, click that like button, leave a nice positive comment down below, and share this with your friends. Maybe we can get more people to come into the Dark Souls and Bloodborne community. But as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm your friendly neighborhood game machine, and this was also a collaboration with Miss AskALuna on Twitch. Don't forget to check out the description down below for a link to her Twitch channel. Let her know that I sent you. And until I see everyone in the next video or live stream, peace out and happy gaming, my friends.